and I've got a bipper thing to flick through the slides. So let's see how it goes tonight. New technology. Cool. All right. Well, good evening to you all. Good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Hello to Hungary, Tokyo. Where else do we have? Indonesia, Jakarta, Hong Kong. Seems like you guys are the regulars here. Everybody here tonight, pretty much everybody here tonight is a repeat attendee. So that's great. So thanks for coming back. I'm really happy that you came back. And I've spoken to most of you directly, either on the phone, on Skype. I've met some of you, or we've exchanged emails. So I'm really pleased that you're here tonight. So let's get going. Let's do this. So first of all, just while we're waiting for people to come along, why don't you tell me where you're from? Get used to using that chat box down there. Or this way. Chat box is this way. So just let me know where you're from. Just say hi, just so you know how to use the chat box, because in that chat box, we're going to ask questions in there. Get used to using it. Any feedback that you have, any questions during the seminar, during the webinar, just throw it in the chat box. But for now, just tell me where you're from, just whilst we're getting going. There we go. Let's get this going. Let's get this show on the road. So where are you from in the chat box? So hello from Tokyo, Japan. I know some of you guys are from Tokyo. There you go, another one from Tokyo. Great turnout from Tokyo, as usual. Let me know where you're from. Just put it in the chat box. And any questions that you have during the webinar, put it in the chat box. I won't be able to answer it straight away, but we'll do it all at the end in the Q&A session. So, guys, are you ready to go? Because we've got an exciting subject tonight. We're going to talk about launching your business in 7 days. Yeah, it's totally possible, right? So this is based on a book. There's a book called The 7-Day Startup by Dan Norris, which you can see here. Now, this is a great book. It basically gives you a step-by-step guide to starting and launching a business in 7 days. Maybe 7 days is a little bit fast for you. But here's the point today. If you're spending a long time thinking about, planning, building a business, and you don't have a paying customer yet, you're wasting time, right? So the purpose of this book and what you can learn from this book and what I want to talk about today, I won't stick to the book strictly. I'll take the best ideas out of the book so you don't have to read it and share with you tonight. The best idea so you can start your business and get going real fast. You know why? Because if you can launch fast, what you do is you reduce risk, reduce the budget you need, the money you need, and reduce the time. And you get a better product at the end of the day. If you can get out there and into the customer's hands fastest, then you'll have a better product. Okay, so what we're going to look at tonight, 4 things: problem, solution, what's coming up next week, and Q&A session. Okay, and we're going to keep this focused around the book, and any questions that you have during this session, put them in the chat box. As I said, I try and answer these at the end. Usually what happens is we get a flood of questions at the end. So what I'm going to try and do tonight, because we get so many questions in the last few webinars, because you guys ask so many good questions, I'm going to try and make the presentation a little bit shorter today, 30 minutes, and then give more time for the Q&A session, because that seems to be you're asking so many questions that we don't have enough time, right? So I'll try and make the Q&A session longer today for you. So please feel free, you're here, you're live with me now, right here, right now. This is not recorded. So, make use of this time, ask questions. 35 minutes presentation, 20 minutes, 15, 20 minutes Q&A, maybe longer. It's, there's so much. So we could be here for 40 minutes. We could be here for an hour. Let's see how it goes. So here's the book that I'm going to base tonight's presentation off, The 7-Day Startup. If you get a chance, go and read it. You can get it off Amazon pretty cheap. Good book. It's not perfect, but it's a great idea. It's like, if you've ever read The 4-Hour Workweek, the idea itself is very powerful. And the idea of the 7-Day Startup is very powerful because it challenges you. It challenges you as a business owner to think about reducing the time and the money that you take to get your business going, right? So here's the problem that we have as entrepreneurs. And I think the problem that most entrepreneurs have, and I see this with the companies that I work with, is they're perfectionists. They want to have the best product available. They want to get the product right before they put this product out to market, right? So they spend all this time developing the product and trying to create this great product or this great story or this great marketing. And this takes weeks, months, sometimes years, right? But the challenge is you've got to squash that right down, because if you're spending longer than a week or a month launching your business, then you are losing money and you're losing time. Let me explain a little bit here. I want to show you a graph. So here's the new technology tonight. I'm going to try and draw this, so forgive me if this doesn't work out, but let's see if we can work this out. Okay. So what I want to show you is a chart, like a growth chart of a new business, right? It kind of goes like this in terms of costs. So the costs sort of go up as you go along in time, and then they accelerate rapidly as you start getting close towards launch, and then they taper off a little bit. And a traditional business kind of launches up here somewhere. As you see, this is a lot of money. It takes a lot of time to get to that point. What we want to do tonight is learn how you can launch right down here, right? Right at the bottom here. Because that is, if you think all this time here, all this money here is money wasted. So that's increased risk for you. And if you fail, the failure is bigger and it's much more painful. The way I like to think about this is there's this game. I don't know if you've ever played this game. There's a game that I used to play years ago. It's available now. Lots of different versions of this game on your phone. Basically, very, very basic. You have two tanks, right? You have two tanks. Here's tank number one, and they shoot each other. And all you do in this game is choose how fast and the elevation of the shot. It's the most basic game in the world, but it's a lot of fun. You know what's interesting about this game is quite similar to starting a business, because what it's like is, when you start a business, it's like this. You don't know the target. You don't know what the customer wants. So you're just putting in some random numbers about speed and elevation. And then what happens is you take a shot, right? You take a shot. And here's the interesting thing. Traditional businesses, they take a shot and then they get the results a year later, because that's how long it takes them from starting the business to getting a paying customer. So if you can imagine playing this game where you take a shot and a year later you get the result, it's pretty useless, isn't it? By that time, you're gone. What we want to do is get to a stage where, like this, we're taking many shots and we get immediate feedback. And what happens is maybe that one's a bit too high. If that's a bit too high, we lower it straight away. If it's a bit too fast, we reduce the speed. And that's the attitude, the mindset that we need to get into business fast and cheaply. So let's talk about what that is. Because generally what happens in traditional business is people take a lot of time to build a product. And like I said, that feedback from the first customer takes a long time. So they don't really know what the customer wants. What they do is they tend to ask people, are you interested in this product? Or are you interested in my service? And yeah, people say yes. If you ask somebody if you're interested in a Ferrari, everybody says yes. But how many people own a Ferrari? Not many, right? So the point is that asking somebody if they're interested in something and actually getting somebody to pay for something is very different. So the goal of today, the goal of getting your business into the game real fast, real cheaply, is to ship. And what I mean by ship is to get your product into the hands of the customer. And if you want to take away one thing from today's session, it's this: nothing happens until you ship. Okay, so let's think about this. You are starting a business, or you're in business right now, and everything you do is pre or post shipping. And what I mean by shipping is getting your product into the hands of the customer, a paying customer, right? So let's think about this, because there are so many things that you can do pre and post shipping. And one of the things I want to do tonight with you is help you focus on where you need to look in your business, right? So let's break this down. So two different types of activities, pre-shipping and post-shipping activities, right? So let's think about this. So writing a business plan is a pre-shipping activity, because you do that before you get the product into the hands of the customer. Marketing is something you can do after getting the product into the hands of the customer. So here's an exercise, right? A challenge for you. What we want to do, try and write this in the chat box. What I want to do is ask you to come up with all the kind of activities that you do in your business, or you can do with our pre or post shipping. Let's just think about these now. So for example, if you've got an idea, write it in the chat box. What I'll do is I'll put these ideas up here, try and write these here. Let's see if I can do this here. So for example, just think about this. So business plan, let's say, let's try another one here. Okay, up here. All right, well, let me write. Okay, so whilst you're writing, let's see if I can get this going. Okay, so recruitment. It looks like a 3-year-old writing, right? Recruitment, that's one. That's pre-shipping activity, right? Market fit validation, very good. Let's put that in, validation. What else? Validation. Sorry for my writing, very poor. Was never very good at writing in school. I'm paying for it now, right? Should have paid attention. Sending email direct to prospective clients. Okay, so let's put the emailing clients in there. Email clients as a post shipping. Oh my God, my writing's terrible. Excuse me. I'm sure my son could have done better when he was 3 years old, but anyway, there you go. All right, upsell. Let's put that into post shipping, upsell. Cool. What else do we have? Pre-shipping, post-shipping, raise money. I'll put that in pre, raise money. Okay, that's a $sign, by the way. Raise money, what else? Post-shipping activities, pre-shipping activities. Okay, so for example, like find an office or design logo. Design logo. Okay. What else do we have? Office, etc. Shipping the MVP. Yeah, they do mean that. So no, I mean actually getting somebody to pay for it. Meeting business partners. Put that in here. Partners. All right. So let's look at these now. So basically, dividing your activities up into pre-shipping and post-shipping, meaning pre-shipping everything you do before you get the product into the hands of a paying customer, post-shipping everything you do after, right? Evaluate satisfaction. Okay, I put that in post-shipping. Change the color now, so I won't come back to that. What we want to do, the challenge to launch your business fast, is all this stuff here. So all this stuff here, we want to minimize, spend as minimum amount of time possible, if possible nothing, on this section, right? And this section here we want to maximize. Okay, so minimize pre-shipping, maximize post-shipping. That is the goal as an entrepreneur, because every day you spend pre-shipping is a day wasted. Okay, and that's really uncomfortable for a lot of entrepreneurs, because they spend days, weeks, months, years pre-shipping. They're developing products, they're building teams, they're writing business plans. It's a waste of time. You're wasting your time. You've got to spend a minimum amount of time possible on the pre-shipping activity, because everything happens that when you get to post-shipping, everything is going to change anyway, right? So if you write a business plan, unless you're writing a business plan for an investor or bank manager, it's a waste of time. Okay, so the solution tonight is this. The number one thing as an entrepreneur that I want you to focus on is this. This is your number one goal. If you're starting a business or growing a business, your number one goal is to find a paying customer. Everything else is secondary. So building a team, finding an office, writing a business plan, raising money, everything is secondary to finding a paying customer. Okay, I'll answer your questions as we get to the question section, if that's okay. So find a paying customer, because until that point, you don't exist. You don't exist in the mind of the customer, and you don't have any feedback from the customer. So you don't know if you're right. It's like shooting again. Remember that tank game? You're shooting. You don't know if you've hit until you get a paying customer, right? So here's the thing. A lot of marketers say that people don't know what they want. So, you know, if you talk to customers, you go out and find customers, they don't know what they want anyway, but that's totally untrue. Here's the interesting angle on it, is that people don't know what they want until they're forced to open their wallets, all right? Because as soon as you ask for $1 from a customer, they know what they want sooner or later, right? They know soon enough whether or not they want your product. So if you ask people if they're interested in your product and they're not paying, yeah, sure, they're interested. It's like the Ferrari again, but ask them to pay, very, very different. So what we want to do, go back to this curve here. If I can just draw this curve up for you again, is we want to try this. When you're launching your business, the very first thing that you're going to focus on is that paying customer, right? That's the first goal. Everything else is secondary. And as soon as you have a paying customer, you're going to go and get the next one. You're going to improve. You're going to get feedback from that paying customer, right? And then you get feedback, you get another one, and so on, right? So you're building on top of every single paying customer. And what happens is you get to this situation, which is where we are now. Let's say you're building a product. This is where most people start. They start with the product or the service, whatever it is that you're providing, right? And they're stuck at this point, right? They're stuck here. They're stuck at building the product. They spend months building the product. And what they've got to do is they've got to get here, right? Paying customer. Because as soon as you get a paying customer, you get customer feedback. And here's the thing. If that customer isn't paying any money, the feedback is valueless. It's worthless. Forget it. Because people will tell you they'll use their product. Again, when they pay, it's a very different animal altogether. When you get customer feedback, you can improve the product. Okay? I don't know what's going on here. And when you improve the product, you can rebuild it. And this is the virtuous feedback cycle that we need to get into as entrepreneurs. The problem that entrepreneurs have is they never even cross this stage here, right? They never even get to the first paying customer. They spend months or years at this point, and it's all wasted. Because as soon as you ask the customer, as soon as you start working with paying customers, everything changes. Everything changes. Okay, so let's have a look at rapid prototyping, because this is what many startups. Let me start again. This is the school of thought that many startups follow today, and we can use it too, even though we might not be a tech startup or whatever. We can use the formulas and the ideas from rapid prototyping. And this can work. I mean, if you're delivering beauty products, or you're a hairdresser, or you're trying to offer some kind of online language school, or whatever it is, you know, if you're developing an app, you can do rapid prototyping, because rapid prototyping basically means to build a product very fast, get it into the hands of a paying customer, and learn. Okay, because the key from this book, one of the key lessons learned, is that you don't learn until you launch. Okay, so everything before launching is guessing. Again, it's like firing that tank again. Until you hit the target, that first paying customer, you're not learning anything. You're wasting your time. So I want to talk a little bit about minimum viable products tonight, because I've mentioned this in the other presentations, the other webinars as well. Some of you may be familiar with this term. If you're not familiar with this term, then I really recommend that you start learning about it. It can apply to every single business, whether you're a service or a product or whatever. And basically what it means is to create the smallest version, the cheapest version, the lowest risk version of your product that somebody will pay money for. Okay, let's have a look at an example here. So the traditional way of building a business, this is what takes a lot of time, is this version here, where your goal is to build a car, right? This is your vision. So let's say you've got a product vision, and your product vision is to build a car like this, right? And so how people would usually do this is they would start with one wheel, and then they would build the axle, two wheels, and then the chassis, and then so on. Because all they're doing is building a smaller version of their vision, right? And the problem with this is this version of building a product, if we were to start here, one wheel is useless to the customer. The customer can't use one wheel. The customer can't go to the shop with one wheel or take the kids to the school with one wheel, right? So one wheel is useless. So if you're building a big website, for example, and you have a big vision for the website, right? The challenge that you may have is you may be building it like this, right? Okay, you have a big vision and you start with a small part of it, but that small part of it may be useless right now. So you may be waiting to stage 4 before you release it. And that's the problem, because you don't know at stage 4 whether or not the customer actually wants what you're producing, right? What we need to do is still keep the vision. This is our product vision. Keep that product vision, but rather than start with one wheel, start with a skateboard, because you can go to the shops on a skateboard, right? It's possible. It's not the best way of going to the store and buying your grocery, but it's a set of wheels and it's transport, right? And if the goal is to get somebody from A to B, then it works, right? So let's say you're developing a big website and a big service, rather than wait until the perfect answer, until stage 4, rather than wait until here to launch your product, what can you do here? So the challenge is the product or service that you're offering. What is the smallest version of that you can push into the market? And even if you can get $1, I'm a big fan of asking for $1. And I talk a lot about this with the startups that I work with. The difference between $0 and $1 is bigger than the difference between $1 and $1,000. Okay. So when you ask the customer for $1, you're asking for a commitment from the customer. And that's huge, because there's 10,000 other things that they could commit to here, right now. So they're going to go with you. So asking for $1 is fine, because it shows that they trust you. And once you can get $1, you can start improving, right? So how do you do that? Well, let's have a look at what a minimum viable product is. If this is your product vision down here, it's the donut with all the hundreds of thousands on top. Start down here. Something that somebody could actually eat and use. But it may not be the best thing in the world, but it's something that somebody would pay for. So let's think about some examples of how you could actually apply this. So what if you're a consultancy, or you're an app, or you had an online training course, or you had some kind of physical product? How could you create a minimum viable product version of this and launch your business in 7 days? So here's a few examples. I'll share with you a few examples from the book, The 7-Day Startup. And this is not all the examples. There's many more examples in here. Happy to talk about these afterwards as well. Happy to talk about these in the Q&A session, because I know you've got a lot of questions already. So what if you were a consultancy? let's say you could be an SEO consultant, or you could be a wedding planner. Anybody that's selling their knowledge and time, okay? So anybody that's selling their knowledge and time in the personal service, how do you create a minimum viable product? Well, if you're a consultant, you probably think that you have to have a very polished, a very professional service, which is true for a lot of clients, right? But are there 10 people that you could call up right now and pitch your service to? Are there 10 people that you could pitch your idea to? And this is what I call the 10 by 10 hack. I've talked about this in other presentations, and it's something that works. It's something you can do, which is basically this. If you've got a product or service, especially if it's a consultancy, or a service which doesn't have a physical product, maybe just an idea, you don't even need a physical product. Day one, pitch 10 people your idea and ask them to pay $10 for the idea, right? Because $10 ain't going to make you rich, but $10 is commitment. And when they pay $10, they're going to give you some really valuable feedback about that product, right? So let's say you're a wedding planner. How could you pitch somebody for $10? Well, you could phone somebody up and say, hey, look, I'm going to start a wedding planning business. I know you're going to get married in the next couple of years, but maybe not right now. But hey, look, if you pay me $10, what I will do is I will sit down with you for an hour and I will work with you on a plan for your wedding, you know, over the next 18 months, 24 months. And I'll do that for $10. How about that? Okay. What are they going to say? They're going to say, no, go away, which is fine. Maybe they're not ready for it. Or they say, yeah, fine, let's do it. And if they say, yeah, let's do it, you've got a paying customer. You have a paying customer day one, right? And that sometimes takes people a year. You can do that in a day. So the 10 by 10 hack is phone 10 people and pitch your idea for $10, right? Pick people that you trust and like, and people that ain't going to tell you to F off, right? You're not wasting their time. People who trust you enough that they will pay $10 for that kind of idea, all right? So that's one. So what happens if you are building an app? So some of you guys build apps. What can you do to get into the game real fast? Well, you can build what is called a concierge app. The concierge app is basically an app which isn't an app, right? So you could create an app, but it isn't an app. Let me explain what that is, right? You can create what looks like an app to the customer, but behind the app is really a man or a woman, yourself, typing away and doing everything that they think the app should be doing for them. So, I mean, let's take an example. I'll show you an example here. Sorry, wrong one here. Okay, I'm lost. So you could take, for example, so you should be seeing a travel planning app, right? So if you create a travel planning app, but only the front end of the travel planning app, you don't put this on the App Store. What you do is you create a travel planning app and you create all the features as if it looks like a real app, but it isn't. It's just the front end. What you then do is you can take it to people, you can take it to friends, you can take it to people around you in your ecosystem, and you can show people the features of this app and ask them to use it. Of course, they can't actually physically use it. They can only sort of run through and jump from screen to screen and get an idea of this app, okay? What this concierge app can do is show people the real experience as much as possible without actually creating a product or an app. So this can take a lot of time and money in the real world. But what you want to do is show it to them, get them to test it, and give you some feedback straight away and ask them, would you pay money for this? Would you pay $10 for this? Why not? Or if you would pay $10 for it, what kind of features would you like to see on it as well? So what you can do with this is, one of the hacks that you can use if you're building apps is wireframing, where basically, and this is great, if you don't know apps and you want to build an app, here's a great way to build an app without knowing how to code, right? There are many websites out there. I won't give you the links now because you can just Google this, where you can build what's called a wireframe, okay? So it's basically what you have here is a mock-up of the app. So it's called a wireframe. Okay, so it's a mock-up of the app, and you can create these yourself just with some basic design skills. You don't know how to code. You don't have to code. You can create wireframes of your app, and then what you can do is you can show people the real experience. So you can create wireframes real cheap. Okay, and you can get it out real cheap so people can see it, they can feel it, they can get an idea of how it works. They can click a button on the app and that takes them to another page, even though it's doing is taking from one picture to another picture. You can get an idea of how people actually use your app in the wild. So that's how you can create a product, an app, especially if you don't have any skills in coding. Just go and Google wireframe app development, and you can find all these kind of sites that can do it for you. Some you have to pay for, some you can do it for free. But the point is you could produce a wireframe in a day, right? You could produce a wireframe of your idea, your app, in a day. You could show people, 10 people, your idea and say, would you pay money for this? Gives you feedback straight away. In a day or 2 days, you could get feedback on your product that, as I said, may take months or years for other people to get, right? And that feedback is very valuable because everybody tells you this is rubbish, right? Well, take it back to the drawing board and do something else. But if they say, yeah, I really like it, then keep developing, keep iterating that, right? So that's the concierge. Another one we talked about in another presentation is the Wizard of Oz MVP. We don't have time to talk about that today. I'll talk about that next week a little bit more in the presentation in the webinar for next week, which is basically similar to a concierge type MVP, different way of doing it, a lot easier to get into the game, another option, but as I said, we don't have time. One of the other scenarios I talked about, what if you, for example, are running an online course or selling some kind of online content? Creating a course takes a lot of time and work, right? It takes hours and hours to create and edit this stuff, right? So how do you know when you actually release that people will actually pay for it? Because there's nothing worse than spending 100 hours recording video, 500 hours now editing the video and polishing it and then releasing it, and nobody buys it, right? So what do you do? So what you can do is, rather than spend 100 hours recording video and 500 hours editing it, you could spend 1 hour recording a video and 2 hours editing it. Record one video and share that with 10 people. Ask them to pay $1. Would you pay $1 for this information? If people say no, then you know that maybe you've saved yourself 100 hours plus 500 hours in development time, right? Or if people say maybe, then maybe you can tweak things a little bit. So the point is rather than create the whole product, what's the smallest possible version of that online course that you can push out there? And then once you get the feedback, you can start building it and building it and building it and building it. And then you can get up to 500 hours or wherever you want to go with that. If you've got a physical product, here's a great idea from the book 7-Day Startup. And something that really made me think, if you're developing a physical product, takes time to build the product, to retail the product, to distribute the product, all that kind of stuff. Takes a lot of time and money. What if you sold somebody else's product? You're thinking, what are you talking about? I want to sell my product. But hang on a second. What if you sold somebody else's product first, which was like your product? Okay. So for example, let's say you're doing cosmetic retail and you want to sell cosmetics. Rather than spend a lot of money developing the cosmetics, why not look for an existing product that is in the area of cosmetics and beauty and health? It doesn't have to be cosmetics. It could be, ebook about health, or an ebook about skincare, or an ebook about whatever cosmetic issues there are, right? Why not find something about that and sell that? Because you can resell these products. If you go to a website like, ClickBank up here. Now, ClickBank is basically an affiliate directory. And basically what ClickBank does, it's one of a number of affiliate directories. There's Linkshare, there's a number of other ones you can find. You know, if you're in Japan, there's Japanese ones, there's one specific to every country as well. And what these are is basically a directory of products that people are selling that you can sell too. So for example, if you go in there and search for cosmetics, you know, an ebook on cosmetics, why not sell that and build a list of people interested in cosmetics? Because, you know, today you could get a product, and today you could start getting people interested in cosmetics and building a list of people interested in cosmetics straight away. So within 1 or 2 days, you could have, you know, start collecting names of people interested in cosmetics, and maybe people potentially who will buy cosmetics products or a cosmetic ebook, for example. Now, when you start building that list, you know, you could have a list of 100 or a couple of hundred or 500 people on that list. Then you could start thinking about selling your product, because you already have a list of people who are interested in that area of cosmetics. And now you can start thinking about developing your cosmetic product. You can start talking to your list. You can start polling your list, surveying your list, pick up the phone, speak to them, and get feedback from them, get insight from them. And at that point, you're going to have a lot of insight about what kind of cosmetic products you need to be launching. Because before that, you didn't have any insight whatsoever. You had lots of people who were interested, but nobody who was actually paying for the product yet. So one option is to actually go in and sell somebody else's product. You know, you don't need to sell your own product to be in business. You can go in, sell somebody else's product, and that can give you some valuable feedback into how customers behave, what kind of things they're interested in, and so on. So coming to the end of the presentation, if you stick around to the end of the presentation, what I'm going to do differently today compared to other weeks is I'm going to give you a link straight at the end of this presentation where you can download the presentation. Because what happens is people tend to email me after the presentation. I don't get back to them straight away. You know, it kind of gets lost in the email box. It'll take a few days, and you know, so on. But today I'll give you a link straight after this presentation where you can click the link, go ahead and download the presentation straight away. You can take it away. So stick around to the end, a few more minutes, I'll give you that link. So before we get to the Q&A session, let's talk about what's coming up next week. It's a continuation of this theme of the 7-day startup. What I want to talk about is, you started a business, now what? So if you started a business, what's the number one thing that you should focus on day one? What's the number one thing you should be focusing on now when you're in business? How do you keep focused? How do you avoid the distractions and the time sucks? Because there's so many things that you think you should be doing when you start a business. What's the number one thing that you should focus on? So that will be the theme of next week's webinar. So what's going to happen is when we finish this webinar, the screen will redirect you to this page that you can see now, just so you understand what's going on. This page here, and there's a button here, and you click that, it will open up the presentation from tonight. And all you need to do, it will open up in Google Drive. You just click File, Save, or File, Download As, or whatever. You can download the file. So that's coming up in a minute. And you can also register for next week's webinar. And we'll see you there. Completely free once again, and rocking. And you send me an email as well. But we're coming up to the questions in a minute. Just before we do that, anything from tonight, if you want to continue this conversation, any questions, because there was so much information, or you want to talk about that book, The 7-Day Startup, hit me up, Graham at up.school.io. That's 40 minutes. So let's head on to the Q&A, into the chat box, guys. Questions that you've got about today's session. Already, you've answered some questions, asked some questions already, so I'll go through those first. And as we have a look at those, maybe you can throw in some extra questions into the chat box, because I know you guys like asking questions. Okay, right. So, first up, can an MVP with lower level of quality ruin, a lot of future customers? I don't think so, because it depends. I mean, you know, well, lower level of quality means that it's a poor experience. So I think there's a difference between lower level of quality and lower level of functionality or features, right? So if you offer a product, but it's a poor experience, you're going to lose customers. But actually, probably the reason why it's a poor experience is because there's a lot of noise in the product, right, or the service. If you take the product apart and focus only on one thing and do that one thing really well, then to answer your question, in theory, the MVP should be a higher quality, right? Because you're just giving them one thing and that one thing really well, okay? But if you wait and you add lots of things to it and they're kind of not all complete and they're not all ready in your service or your product, that would be a low level MVP. So my suggestion is you can avoid a low level MVP and create a high level MVP by actually just doing one thing. So what is the one thing in your product or your service that people will pay for? What's that one thing, that one feature that people will pay for? So as an example, at the moment I'm running a mastermind for up.school and it's in beta at the moment. And to launch this, I used the 10 by 10 hack, which was ask 10 people to pay $10 for the mastermind. Okay, and there's lots of things that a mastermind could be. So for example, there's lots of things like training and business development and all these kind of things. And if we had thrown everything into the mastermind, yes, it would be a low level quality of a product, of an MVP, because each one of those features would not be market ready. And people would look at it and think, oh, that's not very good, that's not very good, that's not very good. But rather than do that, my idea was pull all that out. What's the one thing that people would pay for right now? And I realized the one thing that people would pay for in Mastermind is networking. So time to share with other people, other entrepreneurs. So, just being in the same room as an entrepreneur and talking about your business and your challenges and sharing your problems in business and learning from each other, that sort of emotional connection people would pay for, right? So that's where you could avoid a low-level MVP and create a high-level one by just focusing on one feature. Hopefully that answers your question. If it doesn't, or you want more clarification on that, please, feel free to follow up with another question. Akos. Masa, selling somebody's ebook is popular in Western countries, especially for foreign author. Is that a question? I think it's a question. So yeah, it is. I mean, I don't know why that can't be popular in other countries too. I mean, there's plenty of ebooks here in Japan, right? Ebooks are a great way to build a list. And, if you've got any business, one of the key assets of your business is a list, right? So one of the first things you should be thinking about is building a list of people interested in your area. So for example, let's say, for example, your business is cleaning, right? Office cleaning, just random office cleaning, right? You don't need to get people who are interested in office cleaning, right, onto a list. You just need to get people who are the kind of people who may be interested in that. So what kind of people are interested in office cleaning? So office managers, facilities managers, property managers, those kind of things, right? So, if you had an ebook, you can give them an ebook on that stuff, right? Rather than office cleaning. Or, for example, if you, like I said, the cosmetics example, you could give away an ebook about cosmetics or skincare. You don't have to give away a product that matches your product itself, right? So all you want to do is find out who is interested in this area, right? Because the area is a very big area. There's lots of connected subjects and so on. So that's why you want to get in there, offer an ebook, generate a list. You could sell the ebook or you could build a list as well. One more question. Why is it 7 days? I don't know, because somebody once said that the world was created in 7 days, right? So maybe that's why. I don't know. I think as well, I mean, it's a very short amount of time, but here's the one thing that you learn is that the shorter amount of time, the more effective you become. If you give yourself 7 weeks to launch a business, you will take 7 weeks. If you give yourself 7 years to launch a business, you will take 7 years. That's how it is. You know, an example being, remember the last time you went traveling or on holiday, right? Do you remember that time? Just imagine that time. You're going on vacation or you're going on traveling. You've got to do all these things before you go, right? Apart from packing and all that kind of thing. You've got to get everything finished up. Okay, you've got to, you know, send those emails, you know, post that form, go and see that guy, whatever. That's how it is. Before you need to, before you go on holiday or go on vacation, you need to get all this stuff done. But there's this magical time before you go on vacation where everything gets done, right? Everything gets done. You know, your productivity goes sort of, you know, like, I can't do it this way around. Productivity goes like this, right? You know, 2 or 3 days before you go on vacation, you're getting everything done. Things that used to take weeks before to do. But this magic deadline, this deadline that you have makes you get things done. And that's the magic of 7 days, because if you gave yourself 7 weeks, you know, you'd only have that deadline at the end of 7 weeks, but in 7 days you can get it done. So, a very long answer to your question. That's why I think it's 7 days. I think it's totally possible. I don't think that most people can launch a business in 7 days. I think that the idea is there, and you certainly can launch a business in less than a month. But 7 days, you know, if you do 7 days, that's great. Howdy, Graham. Kevin here. Hey, Kevin, how you doing? How's the guitar going? So you started selling travel guitars, marketing, Facebook, Twitter, email going on. So far, only 3 out of 80 sold. Any insight? All right, hang on a second. Let me just close this. So you're selling, let me understand, you're selling guitars on eBay, Amazon, other major guitar sites, travel guitar. What's a travel guitar? I don't understand that. I know you're into jazz guitar, but maybe you need to tell me a little bit more about that so I understand. Hey, listen, if you're selling any product, okay, guitar imported from Korea, brand new. All right, I'm going to guess here. I don't know enough about the guitar market, so I'm going to completely guess here, Kevin, so forgive me, right? But I think there's probably a group of people who are really passionate about guitars, especially import guitars, right? I guess that's the case. And they don't buy normal guitars. They are specialists, people who are really into a certain type of guitar, okay? And they look for this stuff, right? Now, if you're selling this stuff on these websites, the relationship that you have with these people is just a transaction, okay? All you're doing is selling a guitar to them. I know that sounds really basic, right? But right now you've only sold 3 out of 80. What my suggestion would be to you is, how can you start building a list of these people? Okay, because what you want to do is build a list of 1,000 people interested in import guitars. Okay, so set up a website. You've got a website already. Set up a page on your website. Okay, and on that page, you're going to give away something like, you know, I don't know, here's some of my jam sessions, MP3, or, you know, my guide to playing imported Korean guitars. I don't know. You know, here's 10 ways that you can learn the 10 easiest chords in 10 minutes. Ebook, free. Give it away. Build a list of people interested in guitars. Okay, build that list. Build a dialogue with people interested in guitars and build a relationship with them. Because if you build a relationship with them, what's going to happen is, right now, when somebody's interested in a guitar, where do they go? They're not going to your website. They're going to Google, searching for import guitar, Korea, whatever it is, right? They're not coming to your website. But what you want to do is capture people, okay? Because if only 3 out of 80 are buying, possibly you're missing thousands, right? Who come to your website, look at your stuff, okay? And they go. Because they're not ready right now. They're interested in guitars, but they don't want to buy right now, and they don't know who you are. So what you've got to do is capture those names, build a relationship with them, and they will buy from you, because email is the most effective way of selling, okay? I don't care what people say about Facebook or whatever. Facebook is useful for marketing, but selling, email every time. You know, put your stuff on Amazon, put your stuff on eBay, but sell to them on email. Drive them to Amazon, drive them to email. So drive them to eBay from email. So yeah, ebooks, start a conversation with them. That is what you've got to do, because, you know, guitar people love talking to the guitar people, right? I'm sure you guys could talk forever about whatever guitar people talk about, right? You know, riffs and chords and all that kind of nonsense, right? But that's what you've got to get into, build a relationship. You've got to plant a flag and let people rally around the flag. And that flag is your website. Okay, cool. Sorry, we're backing up here a little bit on the questions. Let me have a look. Let's see if I can capture it. Ariel, you said the input from paying customers matters, but how about product is free and the business model is from ads? Okay. What is the product? Is that some kind of app with like in-app advertising? Would be better to, you know, would be good to get an idea of what the actual product is. But I think, you know, even in this situation, even if it's free, you know, you've got a challenge of getting people to use your product, right? Because using the product is how you generate money. Because if people use the product, they see the ads, you generate money. So you still focus on getting customers to use your product and still get feedback from your customers. I don't know what your product is. If you can tell me what your product is, it would give me a much better idea, because I'm kind of guessing right now, because it's really specific to what the product is. So maybe you can just sort of whack it in the chat box and tell me what your product is, and then your idea. I get a better idea of that. Yeah, cool. So so I missed one, the Akos. So I mean, what's on day 1, 2, etc. Is it the same as fast startup? Okay, yeah, Akos. Have a look at the book. I recommend it. Actually lays it out. Day 1, do this. Day 2, do this. Day 3, do this. Have a look at that. You know, it's really useful. I don't think it's the complete answer, but reading the book will give you a lot of ideas and a lot of insights, and it actually lays it out step by step what you need to do. There's certain things in the book I think it's quite weak. For example, it spends a lot of time on designing logos and websites, which personally I feel are not so important. But it's in the book, so you can pick and choose what you want from that book, right? But it actually lays out day 1 to day 7. Okay, so if you get a chance, have a look at the book. I thoroughly recommend it. What else do we have here? Sorry, Ariel, right? Okay, you're in again. My product SES, it's an app. Okay, so you're developing an app and you have in-app advertising, right? So I understand. What kind of app is it? Is it sort of a consumer type app with lots of users, that kind of thing? So, you know, it would be good to get a bit of insight into that. But I think, you know, the point, yeah, is business. Okay, so business app. So people are, or even still, I mean, if it's free, then you need volume, right? Okay, you're not asking for a lot of money up front, no advertising and so on. Okay, so it's a business app. The key here is to get your app up and running as soon as possible, right? So do you already have your app on the App Store? Are you already making revenues from the app, right? Okay, that's the challenge. So also it's an invoicing type app. Okay, so the key here is you need to grow the number of users, right, to grow your business. It's as simple as that. And the key to doing that is having a better invoice app than anybody else, because I bet if I go into the App Store now, I could find 50 invoicing apps, right? But there's a reason why yours is better than everybody else's. The key is understanding what that differentiating point is. So what I would suggest is you need to build a relationship with your users, and particularly your power users. So within your user group, you have 2 different types of users. You have the fans, the power users, and everybody else. 10% of your users probably generate 90% of your revenues, something like that. I'm guessing, right? 20%, 80% maybe. But that's a sort of natural situation with app usage. you've got a small group who generate most of your revenues. Okay, they are the power users, the smallest in number, but most in volume in terms of revenue. What you've got to do is build a relationship with them, find out who they are. Okay, start talking to them, start hanging out with them. I know that sounds a bit strange, but let's say they are, for example, graphic designers, and let's say you've got a whole group of graphic designers using your app, for example. What you need to do is spend time with these people outside of your office, outside, away from your computer, and with them. Okay, because if you get out there into their world, spend time with them, you will learn about how they use the app. You never get that kind of insight looking from your side of the computer. You're going to sit there next to them looking at how they use the app, and you're going to have that aha moment, that light bulb is going to go on, because you're going to see something that you could never see from the data. You could never see from your side of the computer screen. And this is called empathy, right? And this is what Apple's all about. And this is what Apple built the Apple Store and all this kind of stuff. It's all about understanding the emotional sort of drivers that people have when using mobile technology. So get out there, spend time with your power users, build a relationship with them, build a community with these power users and learn about them. Okay, because the more you learn about these people, the more they're going to grow. You need to focus on protecting and growing that user base. Forget about everybody else. Protect and grow that user base, because they will attract everybody else. They will bring in all the future users for you. Hopefully that answers your question. Quick one. Do you prefer to run the MVP on its own domain, or does it not really matter? Let's say it's a product with its own brand. Is it fine, let's say, my domain launchrock.com or even google.org? Yeah, I think so. I think it's completely possible, because at this early stage, all you're trying to do is get immediate feedback. You're not brand building or anything like that. You just want to get immediate feedback. If people bite at this early stage, that you're doing something right. And the great thing is you're doing it right even with a crappy domain or Google form. Okay, if you I talked about this earlier, talking about ecosystems, go back to the people that right? People in your community. So, if you're part of a mastermind, work with these people, right? Go to these people, and they won't care about mydomain.launchrock.com. They don't care, because it's you. They trust you. So that's a good starting point. The better your relationship with the people, the less they will care about what you've just talked about. The less you know people, the more they will care about this stuff. So you see what I say? Is that it's going to be easier for you if you work with people who you have some kind of relationship with. They don't need to be your best friends, but they need to be people that you've kind of interacted with, maybe got some kind of rapport at this early stage, just some kind of interaction. Doesn't matter. I mean, you can go out and launch with a crappy domain like mydomainlaunchrock.com, but if they trust you, it doesn't matter, right? Okay, guys, look, we're running out of time. Look, we've got 2 minutes left. You've completely exhausted me with questions tonight. Hopefully that was really useful for you. Hopefully you enjoyed that. Lots of good questions. We did 35 minutes presentation and 25 minutes in the Q&A section. So thank you so much for your good questions. You're keeping me on my toes and making me work for my supper here. All right, guys, I will round this up now. So what I'm going to do now is, when I end this, it's going to send you to a page where you can download the presentation, because that saves you having to email me for the presentation. So it's going to redirect you, and there'll be a button there, as I showed you before. Just click that. You can download it. Click the file, save as. It will open up a Google Doc. Click file, save as, and it's yours. And you can also register for next week. Next week we'll continue with this. Is what is the .1 thing that you need to focus on as a startup entrepreneur? And as I said, if you have any questions, hit me up at Graham at up.school.io. I'm sending out a video tomorrow for everybody on the list as a reminder, which will give you a replay of tonight's session so you can get everything. But in the meantime, if you want to get the PDF of tonight's presentation. Stick around. I'll see you guys next week.